Thailand's king approves parliament dissolution. Airstrike on Myanmar hospital claims over 30 lives. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Sahih Samshuddin. Thailand's Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul has announced that he is returning power to the people, moving to dissolve parliament and clear the way for elections earlier than previously anticipated. Some Thai local media reported that Anutin has already submitted the royal decree for the parliament's dissolution to seek royal endorsement. The official Royal Gazette said Thailand's King Maha Vajiralongkorn had endorsed the decree, making way for early elections, which by law must be held within 45 to 60 days. Anutin previously said he planned to dissolve the parliament by the end of January, with a general election expected to be held in March or early April. However, the latest move would accelerate that timeline. The political turmoil coincides with a fierce border conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. Anutin previously said dissolving parliament would not impact Thailand's military operations along the frontier. Meanwhile, fighting raged along the border of Cambodia and Thailand, with explosions heard near centuries-old temples. Officials said at least 20 people have been killed in the latest round of border fighting that reignited last week. Around 600,000 people, mostly in Thailand, have fled border areas. Both nations dispute the colonial-era demarcation of their 800-kilometer frontier, where both sides claim a smattering of historic temples. This week's clashes are the deadliest since 5 days of fighting in July killed dozens before a shaky truce was agreed and signed in Kuala Lumpur. Each side blames the other for reigniting the conflict, which has expanded to 5 provinces of both Thailand and Cambodia. At least 33 people were killed, including patients, after an airstrike by the country's ruling junta hit a hospital in Bersama, Western Rakhine State. According to witnesses, more than 70 people were injured. The junta has increased airstrikes year on year since the start of Myanmar's civil war after snatching power in a 2021 coup, ending a decade-long democratic experiment. Many bodies were visible on the ground outside the hospital overnight, while daybreak revealed rubble covering ward beds, masonry peppered by shrapnel, and the nearby ground cratered. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said health workers and patients were killed and hospital infrastructure was severely damaged. He said he was appalled by the attack, as the hospital is the area's primary healthcare center, providing emergency services, obstetrics and surgery. The United Nations demanded an investigation, saying the strike could constitute a war crime. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has slammed the U.S. seizure of an oil tanker from his country, calling it an act of naval piracy that escalated tensions between Washington and Caracas. Maduro, when speaking at a presidential event, said the crew was kidnapped. He said the U.S. has inaugurated a new era of criminal naval piracy in the Caribbean, adding Venezuela will secure all ships to guarantee the free trade of its oil around the world.
No fue en las costas de Venezuela, fue casi ya arriba, mucho más al norte de Trinidad y Tobago, hacia la isla de Granada, ya agarrando el Atlántico. A esta hora que les hablo, los tripulantes de esa nave, de ese barco que llevaba a los mercados internacionales 1.900.000 barriles de petróleo, que lo pagaron en Venezuela, porque todo el que saque petróleo primero lo paga.
The Donald Trump administration accuses Venezuela of funneling narcotics into the U.S. and has intensified its efforts to isolate Maduro in recent months. The White House said the oil tankers seized by American forces will be brought to a port in the U.S. On a related note, US President Donald Trump told reporters at the White House that Washington will soon begin strikes to interdict narcotics shipments making their way from Venezuela to the US via land routes.
If you look at the drug traffic by sea is down 92%. And nobody can figure out who the 8% is because I have no idea. Anybody getting involved in that right now is not doing well. And we'll start that on land too. It's going to be starting on land pretty soon.
Trump has repeatedly threatened to begin strikes on narcotics being smuggled over land in recent weeks.
Tutup tingkap dan pintu untuk kekal dingin dan lebih jimat.
United Nations officials are scheduled to meet with Sudan's warring parties in Geneva. Secretary General Antonio Guterres revealed the matter without disclosing a date for the discussions.
To be clear, the war in Sudan is a scandal. It's a scandal, first of all, because of those that are fighting in Sudan, and it's a scandal because of those that are supporting those that are fighting, and even with weapons. And this is totally intolerable. We need absolute pressure over the parties and over those that support the parties to stop this horrendous war in which so many people is suffering.
Guterres also said the UN had been promised access in the very near future to Al Fashir, which remains cut off from communication with the Rapid Support Forces controlling access to Starlink's satellite services. Since April of 2023, the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces have been locked in a conflict that has killed tens of thousands of people. EU states have lifted a key hurdle to using Russian assets for a mammoth loan to Ukraine by agreeing on a way to keep the funds frozen as long as required without a need for renewal every 6 months. The European Commission is pushing to tap some 200 billion euros of Russian central bank assets immobilized in the bloc to provide Kiev with much needed funding beyond the end of this year. The loan plan faces strong resistance from Belgium, where the bulk of funds are held, but work is nevertheless moving ahead on the scheme. The sanctions freezing the Russian funds currently require unanimous renewal twice a year, leaving them vulnerable to a veto from Hungary, the EU country closest to Russia. Under the proposal agreed by a large majority of ambassadors from the EU nations, the freeze would remain in place until the end of Russian aggression. Nemo, last year's Eurovision winner, said he is returning the 2024 trophy in protest over Israel's continued participation, which has already prompted 5 countries to pull out. The Eurovision Song Contest, the world's biggest live televised music event, is put on by the European Broadcasting Union (EBU). Previously, members of the world's largest public service media alliance decided no vote was needed on Israel's inclusion in the glitzy annual extravaganza. Widespread opposition to the 2-year war in Gaza has led to mounting calls for Israel to be excluded. The public broadcasters in Spain, Ireland, the Netherlands, Slovenia and Iceland have announced they are boycotting the 70th edition of the Song Contest to be held in Vienna in May. Nemo said Eurovision is supposed to stand for unity, inclusion and dignity for all people, and these are the values that make the contest so meaningful for him. But Israel's continued participation during what the EU's Independent International Commission of Inquiry has concluded to be a genocide shows there is a clear conflict between those ideals and the decision the EBU is making. Still ahead, Bulgarian government resigns after mass protests.
gosok baju sekaligus boleh menjimatkan elektrik.
Bulgarian Prime Minister Rosen Zelyaskov handed in his government's resignation following weeks of street protests over its economic policies and its perceived failure to tackle corruption. Zelyaskov announced his resignation in a televised statement minutes before Parliament was due to vote on a no-confidence motion.
Ние нямаме съмнение, че на предстоящият за гласуване вод на недоверие, правителството за шести път ще получи подкрепа и вотът на недоверие няма да бъде успешен. Независимо от това, за нас решенията на Народното събрание имат смисъл тогава, когато изразяват волята на суверена.
The resignation comes shortly before Bulgaria is due to join the Eurozone on 1st January. Thousands of Bulgarians rallied on Wednesday in Sofia and dozens of other towns and cities across the Black Sea nation. It was the latest rally in a series of demonstrations that have underlined public frustration with endemic growth and the failure of successive governments to root it out. A new analysis by the World Health Organization reaffirmed there is no link between vaccines and autism, contrary to theories being propagated in the US. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last month revised its website with language that undermines its previous position that immunizations did not cause autism. However, WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus noted that autism is not a side effect of vaccines. He said a new analysis by the Global Advisory Committee on Vaccine Safety found that based on available evidence, there is no causal link between vaccines and autism. The committee looked at 31 studies in multiple countries over 15 years relating to vaccines containing thimerosal and aluminium adjuvants.
Vaccines are among the most powerful, transformative inventions in the history of humankind. Vaccines save lives from about 30 different diseases, including measles, cervical cancer, malaria, and more. Like all medical products, vaccines can cause side effects, which WHO monitors, but autism is not a side effect of vaccines.
Venezuela's National Assembly has unanimously voted to repeal the law that ratified the Rome Statute, clearing the way for the country to withdraw from the International Criminal Court (ICC), which is investigating alleged human rights abuses in the country. Assembly President Jorge Rodriguez, a close ally of President Nicolas Maduro, said the measure would take immediate effect. Rodriguez said the repeal would demonstrate what he called the uselessness and servitude of the ICC, which he accused of acting in the interest of North American imperialism. In 2020, the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan said there was a reasonable basis to believe government and military officials had committed crimes against humanity in Venezuela since the year 2017. A formal investigation began the following year. The country's opposition and human rights group said anti-government protests in 2017 were met with torture, arbitrary detentions and abuses by security forces, and more than 120 people died. US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order on artificial intelligence that will attempt to preempt a growing number of state laws governing the technology with a national standard.
It's a big part of the economy. And there's only going to be, I think, one winner here. I don't know if anybody agrees with that. I think most people agree. But there's only going to be one winner here. And that's probably going to be the U.S. or China. And right now we're winning by a lot.
Major AI players, including ChatGPT, Maker OpenAI, and Alphabet's Google, have said the federal government, not states, should regulate the industry. Yet state leaders from both major political parties said they need the power to put guardrails around AI, particularly as Congress has consistently failed to pass laws governing the tech industry. OpenAI has released its latest artificial intelligence models, shrugging off worries about how it will cash in on massive spending in its technology race with Google. The San Francisco-based AI superstar touted GPT 5.2 Pro and GPT 5.2 Thinking as its best models yet for handling math or science work. The release comes on the heel of OpenAI Chief Executive Sam Altman urging his team to strive to keep up with Google, the search engine juggernaut that has been relentlessly innovating in AI. While Google can tap into its massive online ad revenue to invest in AI, OpenAI has been committing tens of billions of dollars to computing infrastructure while having yet to turn a profit. OpenAI Chief of Application Fiji Simo confirmed that a red alert about Google sprinting ahead had been issued at OpenAI, but refuted the notion it has sped up the release of new GPT models. Google last month debuted its latest Gemini AI model, capping a dramatic turnaround since it was caught off guard by ChatGPT's launch 3 years ago.
Guna mentol jimat tenaga untuk lebih jimat.
Tech company Reddit has launched a legal challenge to Australia's social media ban on users under the age of 16, just days after the landmark laws came into effect. The court filings challenge the general validity of the ban and argue Reddit should be exempted from the government's list of banned platforms because it is not an age-restricted app. US-based Reddit previously said it would comply with the Australian government's legislation, but warned it was legally erroneous. The case is separate from the one filed by an internet rights group earlier last month, which is also seeking to overturn the laws on the grounds they are an assault of freedom of speech. Do Kwon, the South Korean cryptocurrency entrepreneur, was sentenced to 15 years in prison for what a judge called an epic fraud. Kwon co-founded Singapore-based Terraform Labs and developed the Terra USD and Luna, two digital currencies that lost an estimated $40 billion in 2022. He previously pleaded guilty and admitted to misleading investors about a coin that was supposed to maintain a steady price during periods of crypto market volatility. Kwon is one of the several cryptocurrency moguls to face federal charges after a slump in digital token prices in 2022 prompted the collapse of a number of companies. Prosecutors had asked for a sentence of at least 12 years in prison, saying the crash of Kwon's Terra cryptocurrency cost billions of dollars in losses. Kwon's lawyers had asked that he been sentenced to no more than 5 years so he can return to South Korea to face criminal charges there. Prosecutors charged Kwon in January with 9 criminal counts for securities fraud, wire fraud, commodities fraud, and money laundering conspiracy. Rescue crews used inflatable boats to evacuate residents from flooded streets in Snohomish, Washington state after days of heavy rain submerged neighborhoods in waist-deep water. A state of emergency was declared as a barrage of torrential rain sent rivers flowing over their banks, causing mudslides to crash down on highways and trap people in floodwaters. Tens of thousands of residents were under evacuation orders. Heavy rain continued to fall over parts of the state, prompting road closures, water rescues, and suspension of Amtrak trains between Seattle and Vancouver. Rainfall intensity increased in several counties in Washington's Cascade Mountains, which had been up to 6 inches of rain in 24 hours. After days of unrelenting heavy rain, Governor Bob Ferguson declared a statewide emergency, warning lives will be at stake in the coming days. Some residents had already been told to get to higher ground. Over in Brazil, more than 1 million people were left without power and dozens of flights were cancelled after a cyclone triggered gale-force wind in economic capital Sao Paulo. Power utility firm Enel said the 12-hour windstorm was considered historic, with toppled trees hitting power lines. It said the weather event caused severe damage to the electrical infrastructure. The fierce wind also led to hundreds of flight cancellations since Wednesday, sparking chaos at Sao Paulo's two airports, some of the busiest in Latin America. Next up in sports, artistic gymnastics lift national contingent at SEA Games.
Sukan SEA Thailand 2025. Semangatnya sudah terasa. Nantikannya hanya di RTM. Penyiar rasmi.
Artistic gymnastics proved to be the saviour of the national contingent on the second day of the SEA Games Thailand after delivering 4 medals, including 1 gold at Thammasat University's Rangsit campus in Pathum Thani. National gymnast Rachel Yeo produced a captivating performance to win the women's uneven bars goal with a score of 13.300 points. It was the artistic gymnastics camp's first goal of this edition. It was also the national contingent's sole gold medal on day 2, following the men's 5-side hockey team and the women's recognised Pumse trio who struck gold on Wednesday. At the same time, the gymnastics squad also secured a silver medal through a Lukman Al-Hafiz Zulfa in the men's floor exercise. 2 more bronze medals were contributed by Muhammad Sharul Aimi Kamaru Hisam in the men's pommel horse and Yap Kiang Xiang in the men's vault event. Meanwhile, national triple jump champion Andre Anura Anwar's hope of winning a hat-trick gold medal at the 2025 SEA Games were dashed after he only managed to win silver at the Superchai Lasai Stadium. Andre's jump of 16.29 metres saw him miss out on the gold medal to Vietnam's Ho Trong Mang Hung with a distance of 16.33 metres. Meanwhile, the bronze medal went to Gabriel Jing Yi of Singapore with a time of 16.09 metres. The result also saw Malaysia's dominance since the 2015 edition in Singapore ended. The 26-year-old athlete admitted he was performing under pressure to defend the gold he won since the 2021 edition in Vietnam. However, he was happy to be able to jump over 16 metres after he last cleared the distance when he won his second personal gold at the last SEA Games in Phnom Penh with 16.06 metres. National sprinter Danish Iftikhar Mohammad Rosli proved his debut at the SEA Games was not in vain when he took home the men's 100 metres bronze at Supercha Lasai Stadium. Home sensation Puripol Bunsun dominated the blue ribbon event in 10 seconds, beating Indonesian representative Lalu Muhammad Zohri with 10.25 seconds, while Danish recorded 10.26 seconds to complete the podium. Danish said he enjoyed competing with the Southeast Asian champion Puripol besides successfully renewing his personal best of 10.26 seconds set when winning the 100 metres gold at the Malaysia Open in Perlis with 10.18 seconds in the qualifying stage 2 hours before the final. Meanwhile, national promising swimmer Tong Yu Jing created history on his debut by breaking the national record and claiming a bronze medal in the men's 50 metres freestyle at the SEA Games. The 19-year-old clocked 22.48 seconds to eclipse previous national record of 22.91 seconds set by Brian Leong in the United Kingdom last year. Singapore's Mikael Lee Junji took the gold with a time of 21.92 seconds, while his compatriot Tiong Zi Wei claimed silver in 22.42 seconds. In the men's 4x200 metres freestyle relay, the national quartet of Q Ho Yen, Terence Ng, Ananda Lin and Arvind Xiong Singh finished second in 7 minutes 19.50 seconds, breaking the national record while narrowly missing gold to Vietnam with touch in 7 minutes 18.67 seconds. Singapore took bronze in 7 minutes 21.13 seconds. The Malaysian Hockey Confederation is optimistic that the national hockey squad will be able to win 6 gold medals when Malaysia hosts the 2027 SEA Games as a result of the implementation of an intensive exposure program. It is currently being actively carried out, covering the men's and women's squad at various age levels.
Dalam 2 tahun ini saya berjanji kita akan pastikan bahawa kita akan beri saingan yang terbaik. Kita akan beri pendedahan terbaik dan pastikan 2 tahun akan datang Malaysia akan dapat mampu mendapat 6 pingat emas.
He also announced that the National Sport Council will channel financial assistance to support the National Hockey Development Programme for the next 2 years. This will ensure that the preparations for the national youth and senior squads run smoothly. Commenting on the performance of the national men's 5 hockey squad, which won the first gold medal for the Malaysian contingent at the SEA Games in Thailand, he said the success was an important starting point to ensure that 5 hockey continues to receive the attention and support it deserves.
So, kita bila buat ramalan dengan MSN pun, kita dah maklumkan bahawa target kita pada sukan C ini adalah 4 pingat emas, 2 pingat perak. Okey? So, kita memang dah ramalkan pasukan hoki 5 lelaki memang kuat dan tak ada sebab kenapa mereka tidak boleh menang pingat emas kerana mereka currently ranking 2, number 2 in the world.
The national men's 5 hockey squad defeated Indonesia 7-3 in the final to record new history for Malaysia when the 5 hockey event was contested for the first time at the biennial games. Fans Group Football Supporters Europe (FSE) called for FIFA to stop the sale of tickets for next year's World Cup due to their extortionate costs. According to FSE, the tickets worth in the competition in the US, Canada and Mexico will cost almost 5 times more than 2022 edition in Qatar.
700 even, and those
the FSE said the tickets allocated to national associations were reaching astronomical levels. Based on information currently available to the FFC, if a supporter were to follow their team from the first match to the final, it would cost them a minimum of $6,900. The group called on FIFA to immediately halt ticket sales, engage in a consultation with all impacted parties, and review ticket prices and category distribution until a solution that respects the tradition of the World Cup is found. The FSE claimed World Cup organisers had promised much cheaper costs for the tournament, pointing to tickets priced from $21 in a bid document released in 2018.
My Card bukan sekadar kad pengenalan, tetapi medium utama yang menghubungkan rakyat dengan pelbagai perkhidmatan kerajaan dan swasta. Banyak insentif kerajaan disalurkan melalui MyCard, daripada bantuan kebajikan, kemudahan kesihatan hinggalah pelbagai program rakyat. Inilah keistimewaan yang dimiliki oleh setiap warga negara Malaysia. Sila periksa keadaan MyCard anda. Sekiranya chip rosak, hilang atau MyCard sudah uzur, segera lakukan penggantian di Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara agar hak dan kemudahan anda sentiasa terjamin. Inilah komitmen madani dengan dokumen identiti yang sah, moden dan diyakini, rakyat disantuni sebaiknya. MyCard, identiti anda, kebanggaan negara.
And that wraps up the world today. In our top story, Thailand's king approves parliament dissolution. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. I'm Sahih Samsudin. Salam Malaysia Madani and have a great day.